Welcome to, it's actually Thanksgiving Monday when we're recording
Happy
this.
Canadian Thanksgiving.
And we're going to be doing episode 122, and it's part 2 of the book Emotional Blackmail, when the people in your life use fear, obligation, and guilt to manipulate you, by author, sorry, my nose is itchy, Susan Forward.
And fear, obligation, and guilt spells F.O.G.
Yes. And last time we kind of made it through to about halfway through the book. And again, I encourage you, like, we're giving an overview. So if this topic really does interest you, it's probably a good idea to just get the book. But now we're kind of moving into the next part, which has some strategies. And it actually talks about kind of the inner world of the blackmailer who hates to lose and doesn't care about keeping your trust or respecting your feelings or being fair. And so there's no healthy give and take in a relationship with an emotional blackmail. And a friend of mine and I were having breakfast the other day, and she said, if you're in a relationship and you're constantly feeling badly because you can't accommodate that other person, then that's probably not the best relationship. Like if you
need to think it through.
Yeah, or back away or something, because you shouldn't feel bad because you say to a person, oh, hey, I'm busy in the next 2 weeks. Can we plan something for after that? Like,
and it shouldn't be a big
it shouldn't
deal.
be a big deal.
No.
But I personally have experienced that, where it's like, well, we're just trying to, do something nice, and now you're not available. Well, sometimes you get busy.
Yeah, sometimes life happens.
Life is just what it is.
So
right?
The next point, the frustration connection, I'm guessing the person frustrated is the blackmailer.
Yes. So when we say no, they can't tolerate the frustration because they connect it to loss and deprivation. So they operate from a place of deprivation and respond aggressively in order to get what they need.
So it sounds like they might have misplaced expectations.
100%.
And you can't meet those expectations. So then this is what happens.
And then
next.
When there's a crisis, then their unrealistic expectations turn them into like devious, manipulative strangers, like trying to get you to do things for them in terms of their crisis.
Right. They're very self-centered. It all becomes about them. And they can be like steamrollers.
And they also make mountains out of molehills. And you have to think of it as the fact that the attacks are coming from inside them, from actually a place of fear.
Right.
So blackmailers frequently win. Oh, that's my turkey stock done.
So the timer just went.
For the turkey stock. I don't know if you can hear it. But anyway, blackmailers frequently win with tactics that create an insurmountable rift in the relationship. So any logic or ability to see the consequences of their action is obscured by the urgency that they have to hold on to what they have. So they're not even seeing that they make you feel bad.
Yeah, they're just in a panic mode and acting very desperately.
But yet they make it seem like you're the problem. And so they have this need to punish us. So they demand and demean, and they see themselves as strong and in charge. But
they come across as very sensitive, extremely sensitive, and self-centered. Yeah.
And they want to feel powerful. And because what we don't talk out, we kind of act out. So they're talking out their feelings of,
Right. Well, they're not talking it. They're actually just acting on it.
Right. But they actually have feelings of them not being good enough.
Right.
But they don't talk about that. Instead, they act it out by trying to
take their claws out. Right.
So they devalue you, and punishment keeps a blackmailer in a strong emotional connection with you. Punishment keeps a lot of passion and heat in a fractured relationship. So,
and the punishment it is passive aggressive.
But you could see this in a divorce situation, right?
Yeah.
Where, I'm not going to let you see the kids. I'm not going to, that's not really the problem, but it keeps that relationship, particularly say the woman has had an affair and the man, has custody of the children, which
Right.
is, I'm being opposite for various reasons. And the man
It's
is
about time.
angry
Right.
because she's had an affair, so he's punishing her by withholding the kids.
Visits.
But because he didn't want the relationship to end, he wants to keep this passion and heat
Right.
in this relationship by
even though it's negative,
so you can really see how it happens. But like the book says, it takes two. And so you have to look at the elements that have led you, often unknowingly, to participate in emotional blackmail, like by really giving it permission to occur. And then they put this list of questions there.
So you don't want, do you berate yourself for giving in?
Do you often feel frustrated or resentful?
Do you feel guilty and that you are the bad person?
Do you feel the relationship will fall apart if you don't give in? And have you become the person that they always turn to in a crisis?
Right. So that definitely patterns. As you're answering those questions, you can look for those patterns.
Do you believe the obligation you have to them is greater than to yourself? So, I really want to do this, or I really want to do something else, but if I don't do this for that person, they're going to punish me, basically.
And do you think this happens more so within families than with friendships or even balance?
I don't know. They don't really say anything about that, but I think it probably happens more in intimate relationships than in friendships. But it's happened to me in friendships.
Yeah, I know.
Like a lack of respect for what I choose, like that it's somehow,
you're not the priority.
Why are you choosing to do that when you could,
I know.
Hot buttons are stored up resentments, guilt, insecurities, and vulnerabilities. So they call triggers hot buttons. And do not avoid, because a blackmailer will use them to ensure they prevail. So these are the kinds of hot buttons that he's talking about, and they make us vulnerable.
So excessive need for approval.
Fear of anger, peace at any price.
Excuse me. A tendency to take too much responsibility for other people's lives.
And then if you feel a high level of self-doubt, those are all triggers. And we cannot link approval with survival. So if you're a peacemaker, you believe that nothing is worse than a fight. If you just keep the peace, then everyone's going to be nice. So, the book talks about making a place for anger in your life, as well as not believing that you're responsible for everyone's feelings, and you can't solve everyone's problems, and you can't maintain another person's well-being, and you have to have boundaries between blame and responsibility.
I think it's easy. I can see myself in this, like I can slip into this easily. I think it depends on the person. Some people slide into this more than others, but I think we can all.
But not getting caught up in the other person's emotional needs to the point where you lose the ability to assess problems and see how you can do the most good. So the joy of helping others almost blinds us to the fact that pity-evoking behavior is manipulative. So, I can't do this and I can't do that and I can't do this. So you step in
pity
and you feel good about helping somebody. But I'm going to tell you,
in a
healthier relationship, you still feel good about helping someone. Like I think of, the relationship that we have with like Jade and Chris. We've never been manipulated into helping them.
No,
ever.
never. Not at all.
Ever. Like they've never put us in a position where we feel, oh my gosh, if we don't step up, but we love the kids. We love being with them. And so, and to tell you the truth, right now with our own kids.
I think emotional blackmailers don't say thank you.
No, they don't.
That's to me the first red flag. And
yes, no, and I think
Chris
the other thing is
thankful.
I don't feel this way about our kids anymore. I don't feel like I have to manipulate them in order to get them to spend time with us.
No, exactly.
And a part of it is my own expectations, because I don't expect, I expect them to have their own lives and do their own thing. and I don't require things to happen at a certain time in a certain way, or
a
we
certain
don't.
date, or
right. Like we had Thanksgiving, but it was up to them to kind of figure things out.
Right. And we've kind of said to them 7 occasions per year.
Yeah.
Please figure out when you want to do it.
Right. But
And
I
that's
don't
what we
feel
do.
like we have to manipulate them into doing that.
No.
So, and, this question of how often do you deprive yourself of something that's reasonable and well within your means simply because you fear someone else's reaction?
Mm-hmm.
And
Did
then, I'm sorry, I skipped the part about women. For women, trying to be powerful, successful, and still be loved, we need to shed the self-doubt and avoid being the scapegoat. Emotional blackmailers take their cues from how we respond to their testing.
And believe me, 98% of males are going to, in many situations, particularly work, but also church, community, volunteer.
But I'm going to say to you that women do this to each other a ton.
Yes.
And like, we just need to learn to be and not worry about power and control. And if someone, like, this is where I struggle sometimes. Like, if somebody does something to me and I know they're trying to pressure me or blackmail me or whatever, I have to really think about if I do, like, I can have the conversation.
Yes.
100%. I can go and do it. I can have the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I can point it out. How ready is that person to hear it? Well, this book would say, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just go do it and they have to deal with it. For me, I'm like, I don't want to waste my emotional, like, bandwidth, on somebody who's just going to get angry at me and isn't going to understand it and isn't going to...
And it's just going to flail at you.
And
you don't need to.
So a lot of my things, like if I get a text that's kind of like, why are you saying that to me?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't respond, or I respond without...
No response is also a response.
Yes, without giving into what is being said there, or without acknowledging.
Or you kind of ask a question back for clarity.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this says, do not apologize, reason, argue, cry, plead, change, or conceal important plans or appointments. Stand up for yourself. And I think those are the responses that I do. I don't apologize. I don't reason. I don't argue. I don't cry. I don't plead, change, or
you don't hide appointments.
Things.
No.
I stand up for myself. I don't always confront what's going on in the same way as like driving over and confronting.
No.
But I set limits, and I do let and I don't have very many people in my life like this, but I do let them know that the behavior, like...
I mean, we hadn't read this book, but we did a lot of this work with families and friends throughout our marriage.
Yeah.
We've just done a lot of it.
And I'm just not letting anyone undercut my own dignity and my integrity, because emotional blackmail robs us of our integrity, the place inside where our where our moral compass lives, and where it clarifies what is right and wrong for us.
And you know what this is making me think of is, if some of our listeners at this moment are squirming and feeling like, well, that's not very nice. And then we go back to that other book
kind,
about what is kind
and what is nice. And being nice means that often you are feeling upset because you're just being nice all the time. It's very similar to what they did there. And you need to take a stand for what you believe in, and you don't need to let fear of what that other person is going to do or feel or be or whatever run your life. It's like when somebody would say, well, if you don't do this for me, I might, commit suicide, or that's an extreme. But that's exactly. And if you give into that, are you really helping that person? Absolutely not. No. I'm not very good at moving it down. I confront people who have injured me. Yes. I define who I am rather than being defined by other people. I keep the promises I make to myself. I protect my physical and emotional health. I don't betray other people. I tell the truth. And I don't silence my inner voice, because your inner voice is what's telling you the truth. And it leads you towards wisdom and clarity, and it guards your integrity.
So emotional blackmail sucks the safety out of any relationship. We stop telling the person what is best for us or how we feel.
And then you aren't intimate with them anymore.
Right.
Because
we lose intimacy and friendship.
Because you've
shut down. There's no more fun sharing of dumb or embarrassing things, feelings, hopes, dreams, and plans and goals. Instead, there's a lot of keeping everything to ourselves.
Idea of unhappy experience or anything that shows we're changing or evolving.
Right.
I remember,
even if you share about an unhappy experience, then the other person's like, "Well, I had this terrible experience."
Well, or competitive. They're like, "Oh, you did that? Like that's what you chose to do about that?"
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of like. Mm-hmm. So the more demands, the less we want to give, and we move from safety and intimacy. And this hit me a lot. So when they're demanding and demanding and demanding and not respecting you, then you start acting a friendship. You don't have that.
It's not a true friendship.
It's not a natural. So, and then the book says, of course, we always have a choice. You can stand the pressure. You can stand up to the emotional blackmail and feel strong and confident.
You can stop. You can buy time when a demand is made. Take time to think. It's not a power struggle, or it's not about control. It's about needing more time to think. So sometimes people will say, "Oh, the ghosting or whatever, you're still being passive aggressive yourself," and you're not. You're just pausing.
I need a break.
Time to think.
And then observe, like you gather information. You're quiet. You seek some clarity. Perception and reason plus feelings equals think and feel at the same time. So feel, beliefs, and behaviors need to connect and come up with something. And then you can strategize so you can learn to tolerate discomfort in the service of healthy change. And you're not getting caught in triangles, which does happen because these people often will go off and talk to you about someone else. Yep. And you can get caught in that too, because someone will say, "Oh, do you have that experience with that person?" Or do you, is this how you're feeling? And yeah, you can say that, but then you're in a triangle,
right?
And the person who really needs to hear it isn't hearing it. No. So then time for decision is to avoid automatic compliance and be more reflective. And think about, is there something in this demand that's making me uncomfortable?
And what is that?
And what part is okay and what part is not?
Am I going to be hurt by this, or is someone else going to be hurt by this?
Are my wants and feelings being taken into consideration? And do I feel the fog of fear, obligation, and guilt?
Do not minimize or rationalize your uncomfortable feelings.
And look for patterns.
And then I always like this about, is your body telling you something different than your mind? So, do you feel a buzz? Do you feel like high blood pressure?
Your stomach,
do you feel your stomach? Do you feel
like not answering the person's text?
Yeah.
That's how I get. I'm just like, oh. Or you hear.
Do you have a tightness in your throat?
Well, and the thing is, sometimes I'll hear because I have a certain,
notification
icon or something, and I'll go, "Oh God, I don't even want to open that." Am I in the habit of saying I don't have a preference? It's no big deal. I don't care. So those kinds of things mean that you're not asserting anything, and don't let yourself feel insulted, graded, or demeaned. Say no. You can say yes with conditions as well.
Sometimes you do need to spell things out in writing,
which we did when your
email, text,
was really emotionally blackmailing us. To get unstuck, we have to make a decision to define ourselves, what we need and what we want. Bullies will collapse if you hold your ground and stand up for yourself. They may respect you more, and they may just drop you. Yeah. Sorry, I'm being honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's the strategy part, is you have to change the power balance in the relationship. So you start with non-defensive communication. Don't defend or explain your decision or yourself in response to pressure. Present a decision non-defensively. Like, don't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't do this." Just say, "I'm not available." Anticipate answers. Blackmailers will make catastrophic predictions and threats, name-calling, labeling, negative judgments, the deadly whys and hows, handling silence. Like behavior can change. Personality styles usually don't. You can feel furious, but stay calm.
Right. You can try to enlist the blackmailer as an ally and listen for solutions.
You can say,
so what is your idea?
I don't like it when you try to make me feel guilty for this. Can you stop it?
And what can you do?
And I mean, I can see me doing that like in a relation, like between a husband and wife.
Absolutely.
Or kids.
Siblings.
Bartering, eliminate the impasse, identify the non-negotiables, and use humor, because the goal is to get the other person to stop manipulating you.
I would say, I know they said that personality doesn't change, but I would say that there are seasons when people slide into manipulating more than
absolutely.
It's not their true.
No, absolutely. Like they're in a wrong relationship,
or they're in a shitty stage of life. They might be depressed,
or their job is a hard time or something. So in order to cut through the fog, you have to reconnect with your own integrity and understand why you're giving in.
Disconnect the fear button by avoiding worst case scenarios and develop positive options.
Like, don't always say, oh, that's going to be the end of the friendship.
Right.
Don't be afraid of disapproval, and have courage and stand up for what you value. Imagine and create a life that belongs to you, even when it's hard.
When somebody's a bully, they are an emotional coward. Confident, secure people don't need to push other people around.
And loud, angry punishers and passive-aggressive sulkers are really frightened little kids inside, because change makes us feel panic. So crisis is a marvelous opportunity for personal growth and a better life, despite the upheaval and uncertainty.
Stop negative thoughts, avoid the black hole, and disconnect from the obligation button.
Challenge the obligations that are making you feel resentful and stressed out, and decide how much you can give without diminishing your own well-being. And I think that's the comfortable space that I feel in with like Jade and Chris and with our own kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, sometimes I choose to go above and beyond,
right,
but I don't do that when I don't have the emotional or physical energy to do it.
Exactly. Guilt is only appropriate when you are malicious and cruel, abusive, insulting, belittling, demeaning, or harmful to someone's well-being. So there are times to be guilty, but only if you're one of those. Labels are not the truth. They are someone else's opinion.
So you have to be kind to yourself and pay attention to your feelings and what they're telling you. Learn from your triumphs and your mistakes, because it's not linear. And stop waiting for other people to change and work on their own behavior. Right. Oh, I wish that person would change. If they would only change, then I could, do it differently.
No,
and that's
you just have to work on your own.
And any relationship that can only survive if you remain a compliant target of emotional blackmail is not a relationship that will nourish your soul or your well-being. Yeah. And that's exactly what we were talking about at breakfast. Like, if something's constantly making you feel bad, or you see that icon and you don't want to return then. And I mean, the people that I'm closest to, I could have that conversation with.
Yeah.
But I would never need to.
You never need to.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
no.
So
it's kind of like there's the inner circle, the next circle, and then the outer. I think it's not always the closest circle. It's kind of the next ring out of people.
So on October 30th, we're going to continue with this theme, and we're going to talk about safe people, how to find relationships that are good for you and avoid those that aren't. And this is a Henry Cloud and John Townsend book.
They are the authors
really good. Yeah.
Of the whole Boundaries series.
Anyway, it's a really good book. And then in the new year, we're going to do January. We're going to do January, February, March, April, and May. We're going to do all about the changes, mostly bad, in public service and private service and customer service. And so if you're listening to this and you have a customer service story that's pretty bad, we actually would like to hear it.
Yeah, and we'll share your story.
Or you can
anonymously,
or you can come on the podcast and share your own story. So thanks for joining us for No Room for Phonies. And again, let's all get out of the fog of emotional blackmail. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.